When a secret letter penned by Robyn Brown came to light in court, the destruction of the sister-wives' family wasn't only revealed, it was lit. In a blink of an eye, no one expected, betrayal and guilt boiled to the surface, compelling Cody Brown to face the same things he'd been running from for years. But it wasn't Cody's response that left everyone aghast, it was Janelle's. Order in the court. The judge's words boomed from the paneled oak room, drowning out a growing buzz of chatter. The room was filled to capacity, reporters writing notes, distant relatives glancing around, rubberneck strangers on the edge of their seats. This was no ordinary court case. There were no barroom brawls over cash or crime charges. This was a family affair, a broken, once romanticized polygamous family that purported to be built upon love, faith, and cohesion. This was about the Browns. Cody Brown, once the charming hub of sister wives, slumped at the table of the defendant. The glint that had characterized him on television was now absent. His hair had turned gray, his physique had lost weight, and his demeanor was deafening. In the corner, Janelle waited, serene, unruffled, but her eyes were another story. Years of anger seethed just below the surface. Her daughter, imposing and inscrutable, stood beside her. And then there was Robyn, seated right behind her lawyer, tightly grasping a crumpled tissue and a water bottle. Her eyes flicked nervously between Cody and the judge, as if sensing what was to come. Then it did. Your Honor, Janelle's attorney stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. He reached into a thin folder and extracted a single, creased sheet of paper. We move that this letter be entered as evidence. The judge raised an eyebrow. What does this letter have to do with anything? It's by hand, signed by Robyn Brown, to Mr. Cody Brown, dated, authentic. No one, my client, Janelle Brown, the other wives, has ever seen it. What's in here? It's heartbreaking. And we think it helped to directly dismantle this family. Gasps washed over the courtroom like a wave. Robyn hardened. Cody's face went white. Janelle didn't bat an eyelash. She knew. She had always known. This letter just confirmed it. The judge paused, then nodded. Proceed. The attorney opened the delicate paper gingerly, as if it would spontaneously ignite in his palms. The parchment was yellowed along the edges. The ink, though faded over time, was nice and readable, elegant, flowing cursive unmistakably Robyn's. He started to read. Dear Cody, I don't know how long I can pretend that everything is fine. I know you sense it too, the way the others gaze at me suspiciously, resentfully, sometimes even with hatred. I truly did try to love them. I promise I did. But I don't fit with them. I belong with you. Perhaps that's the actual issue. I'm sick of trading our peace just to make them comfortable. I'm sick of needing permission to be near you. I never wanted to play the villain in their book. But perhaps if that's who I am nowadays, it's time I stopped saying sorry. The courtroom breathed its collective breath. Robyn put her hands over her face, tears already falling. The lawyer continued. You've always told me I'm your safe place. So why are we keeping together what obviously isn't? If it's me or them, please take peace. Please take me, even if it means losing the rest. The courtroom fell silent as a cold wind. Even the court clerk, normally indifferent, glanced up in shocked amazement. Janelle's attorney put the letter down on the desk, his touch gentle. Let the record show, he said firmly, that this letter was 18 months prior to my client's breakup with Mr. Brown. It precedes the death of Garrison. It precedes the ultimate disintegration of what there was left, and it incontrovertibly states Robyn's intention to leave Mr. Brown, no matter what it cost the rest. Cody at last stirred. It wasn't supposed to be discovered, he grumbled under his breath, torn between apology and remorse. Mr. Brown, you will talk only when spoken to, the judge snapped harshly. But it was too late. The courtroom had heard enough. The truth had resonated louder than any denial. Robyn visibly shook. Her attorney attempted to soothe her, speaking softly, but her whole frame betrayed the turmoil inside her. Janelle remained motionless, her expression inscrutable. But her daughter Madison, she wasn't keeping anything contained. You played us all, she murmured under her breath, staring at Robyn. The judge knocked her knuckles on the bench. Does the plaintiff wish to respond? Janelle rose slowly. She didn't require notes. Her tone was level, but each word had import. I knew all along, she told Cody. He made up his mind. He just never had the guts to tell me so. And then she addressed Robyn. You did not merely desire love. You desired to be the surviving wife. Robyn's lips shook. Her eyes welled, but she remained silent. We were your sisters, Janelle said, her voice sharp with pain. You could have told us. You could have been honest. But instead, you wrote letters behind our backs and watched us fall apart while you got what you wanted. The judge raised a hand. That's enough for now, Ms. Brown. You'll have your full statement in session 3. Janelle nodded and sat back down. Everyone was silent. Even the air of the room felt heavy with betrayal. This letter wasn't just opening up old wounds. It was affirming what had always been in the background of the Brown family. Their destruction hadn't been of faith, culture, or the scrutiny of reality television. It was of favoritism, of secrets shared quietly, of decisions made behind the door. Now, those decisions had overflowed into the daylight, and nothing would ever be the same again. Even as the judge recessed the hearing, the courtroom stayed frozen. The feelings hadn't departed. They lingered heavy, dense, like smoke that refused to disperse. All attention finally returned to Robyn Brown, silent, white, and shaking in the middle of a hurricane she had long feigned didn't exist. It was now Robyn's turn to say something. Each eye in the courtroom was upon her, not merely awaiting, but demanding silently. Would she at last say the truth, or merely dig herself further into blame? Her attorney stood next to her and turned to the bench. "Your Honor," he started carefully, "Mrs. Robyn Brown would like to address the letter just entered into evidence." The judge nodded curtly and gestured. "Go on." Slowly, as if the weight of the moment was tugging at every joint, Robyn stood. She held a tissue in one hand and a printed copy of the letter in the other. She didn't glance at Janelle. She didn't glance at Cody. Her eyes remained low, as if the floor might somehow grant her mercy. Her voice shook, yet it rang out across the courtroom. "I wrote this letter 2 years ago. I was overwhelmed, I was tired, I was lost." She hesitated. Her lips quivered as she took a shuddery breath. "I felt excluded by the other wives. I didn't feel like I was part of the family anymore, not really." Her voice broke. "That evening, I recall, Cody had just come back after being away with the other houses for days. I was just sitting there, crying alone. I felt like I was always caught in the middle of something I didn't initiate, but couldn't get out of." She glanced at the judge for a moment, who gave her an impassive, unreadable nod. "I didn't write it to hurt anyone, or to manipulate. I wrote it to survive. I vomited out what I'd suppressed inside for so long, and I never intended for anyone else to see it but Cody." Cody raised his eyes for a fleeting moment, but Robyn continued not to look at him. "I know now, the words I used were raw and selfish." She tilted the page upward slightly. "Cody, I know they'll never love me the way you do." Her voice cracked again. "That wasn't an insult. That was heartbreak. I just wanted love. I wanted to be close to him. But even then, deep down, we all knew it was already too late." She flipped the page. "I never wanted them to suffer, but I also couldn't give him up." A shiver ran through the courtroom, like a breeze that no one could touch, but everyone heard. On the other side of the room, Janelle did not stir. She did not blink, but her silence screamed. Robyn's hands were now shaking as she continued. "I meant that I didn't want to lose Cody's presence in my life, but I didn't know what it was costing everyone else. I didn't know I'd become the symbol of everything that was crumbling." She went back to the passage that had hit the room like a chest blow. "I can't be the bad guy in their story anymore. If it's me or them, I hope you'll take peace, even if it means leaving the rest behind." Another wave of gasps. This was it. The moment that dwelled quietly in the crevices of every shattered relationship within that family. The turning point that no one had witnessed, yet all of them had sensed. Robyn set the letter down, her tone soft, almost a whisper now. "I know how it sounds. Ultimatum, manipulation. But that wasn't what I was doing. I was broken, and afraid, I thought, if Cody remained divided between all of us, he'd be broken too. I thought I was being helpful." No one stirred. Not even the air seemed to breathe. Across the room, Cody dropped his head. Whether in shame or defeat, it was impossible to tell. And for the first time since she stood, Robyn addressed Janelle. "I never planned to replace you," she said softly. "I didn't ask to be his favorite, that wasn't the plan. I thought we could share love, like we always said we would, but I see now. Cody gave me more time, more attention, more everything, and by the time I realized it, it was already too late." Janelle didn't bat an eye, she just blinked. And in that blink was everything I already knew. Robyn directed her voice toward the children, toward Janelle's children. "To you, I know I became someone you couldn't trust. I know you blamed me, and maybe I deserve that. Maybe I deserve all of it, but please understand, I wasn't trying to win. I was just trying not to lose everything." The judge leaned forward slowly. "Mrs. Brown, please finish." Robyn nodded, holding back tears by mere threads. "I'm sorry the letter caused you pain. I'm sorry I didn't say anything earlier. I'm sorry I kept quiet and let the silence speak 1,000 words for me. And I'm sorry that I didn't stop Cody when I realized he was drifting away from all of you." She sat down. No cheering, no applause. Only silence. The kind of quiet that descends deep, like a stone dropped into the water, anticipating the splash that never happens. The judge addressed Janelle. Would the plaintiff care to speak now, or in the next session? Janelle's attorney leaned toward her. She nodded. Next session, Your Honor. Very well, court is recessed. Session 3 continues in 1 hour. The gavel hit. Chairs scraped, papers rustled, people rose. But Robyn didn't move, gazing at the letter as if it would somehow spring to life and envelop her in its entirety. Cody stood too, but did nothing. He couldn't bear to look at either of them. And Janelle didn't dither. She faced about and walked out with her daughters following, her head held high, her back unbreakable. They didn't have to listen to another word, because at heart they already knew. Robyn might have spoken out of pain, but pain does not extinguish intent. The letter was penned in ink, but what it inscribed upon the hearts of others was etched in heartbreak. And then something nobody anticipated. The judge had not even called the court back into order, but Janelle stood up once more. No lawyer leaned into her ear this time. No one asked permission. She did not need it. Her heels clicked loudly as she moved to the middle of the room, her expression unreadable, her stance fierce, but her eyes blazed. She wasn't moving forward. She was moving through years of silence. And when she spoke, her voice was hushed. Too hushed, the kind of hushed that chilled. I asked you for the truth, Cody. The room leaned in. I asked you for a genuine reason. Not the evasions, not the doctrine, not the calendar conflicts, just the truth, because I deserved it. We deserved it. Cody didn't glance up. But Janelle wasn't finished. She held the letter in her hand, now notorious, laden with significance. This is what I wanted, and you kept it. You locked it away in some drawer, you made your choice, and you didn't have the guts to say it aloud. She shook the letter once, a fleeting glimmer of pain crossing her face. You weren't loyal to us, Cody. You were only ever loyal to her. And in the silence thereafter, the truth at last filled the room, unforgiving and irrefutable. Even the cameras that were posted outside the courthouse appeared to feel the seriousness oozing in through the walls. Janelle spun around, her voice biting but firm, never wavering, never rising. She was addressing Robyn squarely now. You did not ruin this family, Robyn, she said. Cody did. The gallery gasped. But your silence, your smiling silences, your refusal to break him up even when you realized what was going on, Janelle's voice broke a little. You facilitated it. Maybe you meant to, but you let this unravel thread by thread. Robyn clapped her hands over her mouth, her shoulders convulsing as sobs took over, but Janelle didn't recoil. Do you have any idea, she demanded, what it's like to have your children cry on Christmas? Because the father didn't even call. Do you have any idea how many of my birthdays I spent lying to them, telling them you were busy, when the truth was you'd already moved on? Her voice broke then, for the very first time, but only a little. I guarded your reputation, Cody. I stood up for you for years. Because I believed, God, I believed, that the man who held our babies and vowed us forever was still somewhere within you. She breathed deep, long and tired, the sort that emerged from a soul drained by years of faking it all being fine. But now I understand what was actually occurring. She gazed down at the letter in her hand and read from it once more, quietly but with unmistakable stress. If it's me or them, I hope you'll choose peace, even if it means losing everything else. Then she gazed up, directly at Cody. And you did. He closed his eyes, still silent, still frozen, a man trapped in the wreckage of his own creation. Janelle continued. I might have been able to live with the truth. What I couldn't live with was your cowardice. You did not end it like a man, you let it wither. One unanswered phone call, one unreturned message at a time, you let it all die. Tears coursed down her cheeks now. She didn't brush them away. She didn't have to. This wasn't shame, it was release. Do you remember the last message Garrison sent you? She asked, her voice softer now but weightier. Cody's lips opened slightly, but he uttered not a word. Janelle took out a printed screenshot from her file of evidence. Laminated, saved, pain immortalized. She read, Dad, we miss you, but you only appear when it is convenient. I won't plead anymore. I just want Mom and the rest of us to have peace. The courtroom froze. People didn't just hear them, people felt it. The grief resonated like an earthquake that wasn't there. Even the judge had to glance down, visibly shaken, attempting to get a hold on herself. Janelle let the words hang, and then she glanced over at the judge. Your Honor, I'm not here for money. I'm not here to sully someone's name. I'm here because my children were abandoned. Their version of history was shut down, and their father played house with his favorite wife and informed the world that we were just bitter, emotional, crazy. She turned and pointed toward the back of the room, where two of her grown sons sat quietly, One was crying. These boys grew up believing they weren't enough, that maybe they did something wrong, because their dad chose to disappear and their mother chose not to slander him. Then she turned back to Cody. Her voice softened, but became almost unbearably heavy. But today, I'm done shielding you. She moved in, near whispering now. You don't get to rewrite this book. You don't get to tell the world we abandoned you. You abandoned us. And Robyn, I hope one day you know what that silence cost. Not me, not the kids, but you as well. Robyn silently wept into her lawyer's shirt. Cody hadn't budged yet. Janelle nodded slightly to the judge, backed up and sat. The room caught its breath. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It wasn't anger anymore, it was quieter. Sadder. The kind of tension that lingers in a room after a truth has finally, painfully been uttered. Not bellowed, not debated, unveiled. The judge cleared her throat daintily, her voice almost hoarse. Thank you, Ms. Brown. We will now proceed to the next testimony. The gavel came down softly, and for the first time since the hearings had commenced, Janelle smiled, barely. It wasn't a winner's smile. It was the smile of a person who had borne too much for too long, and at last laid it down. The silence that greeted her sitting down was the longest so far, a hallowed, arrested stillness, as if even the air knew not to break it. Then at last, Cody Brown rose to his feet. And this time he seemed shattered. Not defensive, not fighting, just hollow. He moved slowly forward, alone. No notes, no defenses, just a man who had buried too many words for far too long. He gazed at the judge, then hesitantly at Janelle, then after a moment at Robyn. And he began to speak. I failed. The words fell like a stone into a still lake. I failed as a husband, as a father, as a man. A soft gasp escaped the gallery. Even Robyn, who continued to sob quietly, raised her head. But Cody didn't seek sympathy. He was falling apart. When we started this family, I had something bigger in mind. Something different, built on faith, built on love, built on sacrifice, all of us. He stopped, unable to find words that didn't sound empty. But somewhere along the way, I lost it. I stopped seeing the unity. I only saw the fires. I felt like I was being pulled in every direction, and I didn't know how to give anyone what they needed anymore. He gazed at the judge. I was exhausted. Each house required something I couldn't provide, and I began to back away. I didn't know how else to save myself from drowning. Then he looked at Robyn. And Robyn brought me peace, and I held on to that peace like it was the only thing that kept me from shattering. The courtroom fell silent once more, but this time the silence was different. It wasn't stagnant. It was listening. Cody's voice cracked. I didn't intend to leave anyone behind. I didn't intend to hurt the kids. I just got lost in how to make it better. And instead of working harder, I checked out. I clammed up. I figured if I kept quiet long enough, the issues would go away. He glanced at Janelle again. Eyes red-rimmed, jaw clenched. But his next sentence came out distinct. And I was wrong. He had prayed the screaming would cease. That someone else would come along and correct what he couldn't. His breath came slower as he took a step back through time. I left the letter in a drawer for nearly 2 years, he admitted quietly. I only read it once, and I knew if anyone else ever read it, everything would collapse. That letter contained all the truth he had been afraid to say out loud. He looked at Robyn, his eyes tired. You didn't make me do anything, but you were the only one who didn't make me feel judged anymore. In your house, I felt like I was enough. His voice broke. I'm sorry that made you a target, but I see now. That made the others feel abandoned, because they were. He wiped his face with shaking hands, mask slipping. His voice was softer now, stripped of pretense. I was making a choice for peace. But all I was really doing was running from difficult talks, from the obligation I owed this family, from the fact that I had stretched us so thin we broke. Janelle sat quiet, her face impassive, yet tears glittered in her eyes. Cody dropped his eyes to the ground. Then, incrementally, agonized, he raised them again. Garrison's death. His voice cracked totally. He swallowed hard, as if the words were too rough to be spoken. Garrison's dying. It broke something within me that I couldn't repair. He reached out to me, and I didn't reach back. I wasn't there. I'll never be able to make that right. Tears streamed down his face now, unrepentant. You were correct, he whispered to Janelle. He surrendered, and I assisted him in doing so, not with what I said but with what I didn't say, with all that I kept silent about. The courtroom was quiet. No one stirred. Even the judge leaned forward a little, hands clasped, listening not as a magistrate, but as a human being. I stopped attending Christmas, Cody confessed, because I couldn't deal with the disappointment. I stopped calling because losing was too painful. He looked toward the vacant seat next to him. the emptiness in the courtroom reflecting the emptiness in his life. I tried to love you all the same. I could expand my heart to fit into 4 houses. But in the end, I gave more and more to Robyn, not because she asked, but because I let it happen. Robyn's hand was over her mouth. She shook in her chair. And the worst part, he went on, voice hardly above a whisper, is I knew. I saw it in your eyes. I felt it every time you pulled away. And still, I did nothing. At last, Cody glanced at the judge. I don't expect forgiveness. I know some of my children may never talk to me again, and I accept that. His hoarse and hollow voice went on. But I had to tell you, even if it's too late, because lying about it didn't save anyone, it ruined everything. Cody lowered his head. There was a silence that came afterward that wasn't awkward, it was reverent. A courtroom holding its breath. No one stirred. No attorneys objected. Not even the court reporters clacked away. Because this wasn't testimony anymore. This was a man, admitting to the destruction he caused. After an eternity, the judge's voice softly shattered the silence. Mr. Brown, is there something further you'd like to say? Cody lifted his face. His eyes were red. His voice was held together with shoelaces. Just this, if you're building a family, and it comes to feel like each and every day you're deciding who to let down, stop. Tell the truth before it's eating away at you from the inside out. I didn't. And this is the cost. He sat down, completely undone. The courtroom was silent, but this time not with shock, because of recognition. Because sometimes, the bad guy isn't the one who screams. Sometimes, it's the one who vanished when the time came to speak the truth. And today, at last, Cody Brown had spoken. Too late for mending, but perhaps just in time for truth. The silence that followed wasn't fear. It was the murmur of something breaking. After 5 grueling, emotionally brutal sessions, sobs, confessions, silence, and revelations, the gavel was raised one last time. All of them knew in the room. When it came down, it wouldn't merely seal the fate of a trial. It would seal the destruction of a family, one brick at a time, one heartbreak too many. The judge, collected but not unfeeling, started reading the verdict. In regard to property and community assets, she declared, this court concludes there is ample evidence that all remaining financial investments, realty, and other communal assets will be divided equally between the wives, Janelle Brown, Christine Brown, Mary Brown, and Robyn Brown. Her voice was firm, but the words had power. Each one of them brought years of unpaid work, love, and care into this home. They're entitled to equal share. Nothing happened. No nods. No exchanged glances. Just the silent realization that justice never really feels like fairness. She went on. With respect to minor dependents, Mrs. Robyn Brown will have sole legal and physical custody of her children with Mr. Brown. Visitation for Mr. Brown will be supervised, subject to successful completion of emotional therapy, parenting counseling, and future court assessment. Robyn's eyes drifted shut. One tear sketched down her cheek. Cody didn't blink. He had prepared himself for this portion. But then came the verdict that cut deeper than any judgment heretofore. In terms of the adult children he had with Janelle, he had wished the screaming would cease, that perhaps another would intervene and repair what he could not. His breathing did slow as he took a step backward in time. I left the letter in a drawer for nearly 2 years, he admitted quietly. I read it only once, and I knew if anyone else ever read it, everything would break down. That letter contained all the truth he had been a coward enough not to say out loud. He looked over at Robyn, his eyes tired. You didn't make me do anything, but you were the only one who didn't judge me anymore. In your home, I felt like I was enough. His voice trembled. I'm sorry I made you a target, but I get it now. That left the others feeling abandoned, because they were. He ran his hands over his face, shaking, the mask slipping. His voice was softer now, raw. I was telling myself I was choosing peace, but all I was doing was running from tough talks, from the duty I owed this family, from the fact that I had stretched us so thin we broke. Janelle remained silent, her face impassive, but tears glistened in her eyes. Cody set his eyes to the ground, and then slowly, agonizingly, he raised them again. Garrison's death. His voice crumbled completely. He swallowed, as if the words were too rough to speak. Garrison's death, it broke something in me that I haven't been able to mend. He reached out to me, and I didn't reach back. I wasn't there. I'll never be able to make that right. Tears streamed down his face now, unapologetic. You were right, he whispered to Janelle. He gave up, and I helped him do it, not with my words but with my silence, with everything I didn't say. The room was still. No one moved. Even the judge leaned forward slightly, hands folded, listening not as a magistrate, but as a human being. "I quit going to Christmas," Cody confessed, "because I couldn't take the disappointment anymore. I quit calling because losing was too painful." He glanced at the vacant chair next to him, the emptiness of the courtroom echoing the emptiness of his life. "I believed I could love you all the same, that I could spread my heart over 4 houses. But eventually, I gave and gave to Robyn, not because she asked, but because I allowed it to occur." Robyn's hand was over her mouth. She shook in her seat. "And the worst of it," he went on, his voice little more than a whisper, "is that I knew. I could see it in your eyes. I felt it each time you pushed me away. And still, I did nothing." At last, Cody raised his eyes to the judge. "I don't hope for forgiveness. I understand that some of my children will never speak with me again, and I accept that." His own voice, now hoarse and empty, continued on. "But I had to say this, even if it's too late, because keeping secrets didn't keep anyone safe. It ruined everything." Cody lowered his head. The hush that followed wasn't tense, it was holy, a courtroom being held in abeyance. No one stirred. No attorneys objected. Not even the court reporter's fingers flew. Because this wasn't testimony anymore. This was a man owning up to the destruction he caused. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the judge's voice softly interrupted the silence. "Mr. Brown, is there anything further you'd like to say?" Cody raised his gaze. His eyes were puffy. His voice was held together by a thread. "Just this: if you're creating a family, and it begins to seem like every day you're deciding who to let down, stop. Tell the truth before it eats away at you from the inside out. I didn't. And this is the cost." He sat down, completely shattered. The courtroom was silent, but not from shock this time, because of recognition. Because sometimes, the bad guy isn't the one who shouts. Sometimes, it's the one who walks away when it's time for the truth. And today, at last, Cody Brown had spoken it. Too late to heal, but perhaps just in time for truth. The silence that followed wasn't fear. It was the beeping of something concluding. After 5 gut-wrenching sessions, replete with tears, admissions, silence, and disclosures, the gavel was lifted for the final time. Everyone in the room understood. When it came down, it would not only seal the end of a trial. It would seal the demolition of a family, one brick at a time, one heartbreak too many. The judge, serene but not unfriendly, started to read the verdict. "Regarding property and community assets," she declared, "this court holds there is adequate evidence all remaining financial holdings, real estate, and other community assets will be divided in half amongst the wives: Janelle Brown, Christine Brown, Mary Brown, and Robyn Brown." Her tone was firm, but the words bore weight. "The court recognizes that each woman entered these shared quarters with years of unpaid work, emotional labor, and caregiving. They are due equal share." Nobody moved, no head nods, no exchanged glances, only the sound understanding that fairness doesn't always equate to justice. She went on. "As for minor dependents, sole legal and physical custody of her children with Mr. Brown will be held by Mrs. Robyn Brown. Visitation of Mr. Brown shall be supervised, subject to successful completion of emotional therapy, parenting counseling, and future court assessments." Robyn's eyes fluttered closed. A lone tear etched down her cheek. Cody did not wince. He had been prepared for this portion. But then came the ruling that cut deeper than any previous judgment. As for the adult children he has with Janelle, the adult children are left entirely in their control by the court. Any visitation, contact, or relationship will be at their discretion. Mr. Brown is not to contact them under any circumstances without their writing permission. That was all. Janelle didn't flinch, but her throat constricted, her shoulders squared, intercepting the pain before it could drop. Cody bowed his head. There were no more words to give. The judge raised her gavel and struck it down with a sharp, final bang. Court was dismissed. But it was closer to a funeral than a decision. As the people slowly stood, it was obvious. Something had died here, something that had been dying for a very long time. Outside, the world went back to noise. Reporters pushed forward as the doors swung open. "Robyn, what do you make of the decision?" "Janelle, do you hold Cody responsible for the death of your son?" "Mr. Brown, will you be battling for custody?" But they didn't have to respond. The truth was already written on their faces. Robyn departed first, lawyer in tow, a court officer by her side. She did not pause for the cameras. Her head down, her footsteps fast, her eyes bloodshot and puffy, there was nothing more to be said. For years, they nicknamed her the favorite, the homewrecker, the one Cody remained with. But today, she was the last wife remaining, and she looked lonelier than ever. One voice rang out amidst the throng. "Robyn, do you feel guilty?" She flinched, but she didn't slow. Her SUV came to the curb. She climbed in, silently, without comment, without a word, only tears. Then Janelle arrived. She didn't hurry, she walked deliberately, slowly, head held high. Her adult children stood on either side of her like silent sentinels. They did not speak, they didn't have to. The media mobbed her. But she paused, just for an instant. One reporter, soft-spoken in her tone, asked, "Miss Brown, what would you like to say to your family after today's ruling?" Janelle met the cameras straight on. No anger, no drama, just reality. "He didn't destroy us," she said. "He just revealed himself to us." Then she turned and walked away unremorseful, intact. She had endured betrayal, abandonment, public censure, and heartache. And now, finally, she walked away free. Cody didn't pursue. He remained behind, long after the courtroom had cleared. That same letter, crumpled, yellowed, still warm from where he'd clutched it while making his confession. He gazed at it, as though it might magically provide him with new words. It didn't. It still read, "If it's me or them, I hope you'll choose peace." And he had. But the peace he'd chosen had come at a price he'd never have dreamed of. Finally, a bailiff came over. "Mr. Brown, the courtroom is closed." He blinked, nodded slowly. Then he stood, and walked out the same door he'd walked through so many years before. Back when he was the father of a large family, the husband of 4, a man who believed he had created something that couldn't be broken. Now, there was no family to greet him. Only a handful of photographers, taking photos of a man who didn't know what he'd lost, until it was taken from him. He descended the marble steps, one deliberate step at a time. Outside, the world continued. The reporters departed. The crowds dispersed. The courthouse cleared. And Cody was at the bottom of the steps, letter still clutched in hand. Once it was confidential, now it was public record. His secrets now persisted in transcripts and headlines. His legacy wasn't what he'd intended. He'd founded it upon faith, upon plural marriage, upon unity and control. Now paperwork, custody orders, supervised visitation. And the worst part, he was no longer dad. The children he used to put to bed at night now held memories of absence, not love. The wives he once considered soulmates now walked in opposite directions. The life he struggled to save had broken. And all that was left, this letter. He sat on the courthouse steps, cold under him, time slipping away unmarked. The letter remained in his hand. He did not open it once more. He did not have to. He knew. Some words can't be taken back. Some decisions can't be reversed. Some doors, once shut, never open once more. Inside, the courtroom was vacant. The air was stagnant. And Cody Brown, surrounded once upon a time by wives, kids, cameras, and conviction, was merely a man now. Alone, letter in hand, past behind him, and no one remaining, waiting for him to return home.